The room was silent, eerily silent. Cameras flashed, yet no one spoke. In Washington, D.C., the U.S. Supreme Court had just made a startling decision. They blocked Donald Trump's renewed effort to deport thousands of African and Middle Eastern refugees, labeling them as unintegrated threats. The courtroom was filled with tension, but what no one expected was the immediate reaction from Burkina Faso. Within 2 hours, a plane touched down. Captain Ibrahim Traore, president soldier and symbol of African pride, stepped out, not with guards or weapons, but with a handwritten letter in his hand. He didn't come to fight, he came to speak. And in doing so, he would shake the foundations of the world's most powerful court. Across social media, people watched in disbelief. Why is Traoré going to the U.S. Supreme Court? What does Africa have to do with this ruling? What they didn't know was that one of the deported families was connected to a secret U.S. military operation. And Ibrahim Traoré knew the truth. 2 days before the ruling, an 8-year-old boy was found crying outside a detention center in Texas. His name? He had none. He'd been separated from his family after a border sweep ordered by an old executive memo Trump had signed in his last days in office. When asked where he was from, the boy simply said, Ouagadougou. Papa wore a uniform like the man on the TV. That man on TV was Ibrahim Traoré. The boy was the son of a Burkina Faso interpreter who had risked his life during a secret joint U.S.-Burkina Faso anti-terror mission in 2023. His father was promised asylum for his service. But now, he was gone. Deported. Vanished without a trace. When this reached Traoré's desk, he stood in silence for 11 seconds. Then, he said 4 words. "This child is mine." The press laughed, but they didn't understand what he meant. In Traoré's eyes, every abandoned child, every forgotten soul cast aside by the powerful, was his responsibility. And now, he was going to tell the 9 most powerful judges in America exactly what they had done. Mr. President. With all due respect, this is highly irregular, one U.S. official whispered, watching Ibrahim Traoré calmly enter the Supreme Court building. Dressed not in military garb, but in a simple dark tunic, with the Burkina Faso emblem stitched over his heart, he walked in with no lawyers, no script, and no permission. Only courage. Outside, thousands of protesters had gathered. African students, U.S. veterans, immigrants, civil rights leaders, and families like the interpreters. They carried signs. Let them stay. Africa remembers. This is about humanity. Inside, one of the judges raised his brow. This court doesn't allow unsolicited testimony, he said firmly. Traoré didn't raise his voice, but his first words froze the room. You may not allow testimony, but you allowed silence to become law, and I will not be silent. The room fell deafeningly quiet. The cameras were already rolling, and what Traoré was about to say would change the entire world's view on deportation, loyalty, and forgotten promises. Traoré stood still before the bench. He didn't bring anger. He brought truth. 3 months ago, an interpreter working with your forces was promised safety, he said, holding up a copy of a military agreement. He translated your commands. He protected your men. He helped dismantle a terror cell that was killing both our people. And when it was over, he was told to wait for asylum processing. He paused. The courtroom was silent. Even the judges were motionless. He waited. He believed your promise, and you deported him like trash. Gasps rippled through the press gallery. Traoré raised a small, torn piece of cloth. A child's sleeve. This was the last thing his son was holding before U.S. officers took him away. He has no mother. His father vanished. He now speaks to walls at night, calling them Papa. One of the female justices covered her mouth. Traoré looked each judge in the eye and whispered, "If this child was born in Texas instead of Ouagadougou, Would you care more? The world was watching, and in that moment, it began to weep. Outside the court, video footage emerged, a leaked clip from a border facility. In it, the Burkina Faso interpreter, hands tied, was being mocked by border agents. They called him the African rat. They called his son a future terrorist. One voice said, "Ship them back, or better bury them in the desert." That video went viral in under an hour. Inside the court, Traoré remained composed, but his voice cracked. "My people are not dogs. My people have names. My people saved American lives while your own citizens hid behind armored drones." He turned slowly toward the cameras. "And this is not just about Burkina Faso. This is about Syria, Sudan, Haiti, Palestine, Colombia, refugees who were used and then forgotten." Tears rolled down a black law clerk's cheek. Across African cities, crowds gathered in public squares watching live. One elderly woman whispered in Moore, "He speaks for all our children." Meanwhile, the boy, the interpreter's son, was watching too. From a foster home in New Jersey. He didn't blink once. He just whispered one word over and over again, "Papa." For the first time in decades, the Supreme Court justices requested a break mid-session, but Traoré refused to leave. "I'll stand here, I'll wait. Like your interpreters waited in the desert," he said softly. His words haunted them. Behind closed doors, the justices argued. Justice Richards, a stern conservative, clenched his fists. "He's not American. He has no standing." Justice Elena Ferris whispered, "But he has something more than standing. He has the world's heart." Outside, a sea of supporters stretched for blocks. Students, veterans, even former immigration officers came to join. One woman cried on camera, holding a hand-painted sign, "I deported a child. I live with that every day." Back in court, Traoré finally sat. He hadn't eaten all day, but when offered water, he declined. "I'm fine, just tired of fighting battles that should never exist." Then he opened a folder containing letters from over 60 deported African war collaborators who were promised safety. Each letter was short, but they all ended the same way. "Tell my children I served with honor, even if I die forgotten." Traoré looked up and asked the question that would haunt the court forever. "Who buries your promises?" Traoré held up a single photograph before the court. It wasn't violent. It wasn't political. It was a blurry photo of a young African boy sitting alone in a U.S. detention center, wrapped in a silver thermal blanket. His eyes were red from crying. His lips cracked from dehydration. In his tiny hands he held a drawing, a stick figure in uniform, with the words, "Papa Protect," scribbled beneath. "This child is not a criminal," Traoré said. "He is the son of a man who served your military, who helped stop 3 suicide bombings, who translated coordinates to save your soldiers." A long silence followed. Then he added, "Your system didn't just deport the father, it orphaned the son." The photo was leaked. By nightfall, it was on the front page of the New York Times, Al Jazeera, and Le Monde. Hashtags exploded. "Who is his father?" "Traoré speaks." "Forrest." "Deported." And forgotten people were crying, sharing, screaming. And somewhere in the U.S., in a quiet foster home, the little boy was staring at the TV. He whispered, "That's him, the man Papa said would never let go." Back in the courtroom, Traoré opened a sealed envelope. Inside was a classified U.S. document, declassified only 48 hours before. "Operation Fire Dust," he said, his voice calm. "Your government, my intelligence officers, and one brave interpreter, codenamed Falcon Echo, dismantled a terrorist group in Niger." He placed the report before the judges. "This is your acknowledgement," he said, tapping the signature of a former U.S. general. "And yet, Falcon Echo was deported without warning. His son thrown into a system that treats dogs better than refugees. A single judge stood up. "What exactly are you asking us for, Mr. Traoré?" He looked the judge in the eye. "I'm not asking, I'm reminding. Reminding you that justice is not paperwork. It is people." Outside, crowds grew larger. From Nairobi to New York, candles were lit. Names of deported interpreters were read aloud in churches and mosques. Some were already confirmed dead. One name echoed again and again. Abdoulaye Ouedraogo, the boy's father. Buried somewhere in the Sahel. No grave, no goodbye. The judges were visibly shaken, but Traoré was not finished, not even close. A journalist slid Traoré a folder during a short recess. Inside it was a letter, written in shaky French, torn at the edges, dated 3 days before Abdoulaye was deported. "To my son, if I don't return, know this. I was not just a translator. I was a father. I served for you. I trusted promises. But if I vanish, find the man I showed you on TV. He's not perfect, but he will speak for you when I cannot. Your papa." Abdoulaye Traoré froze for a moment after reading, then walked back into court with the letter in his hand and the boy's photo in his pocket. He placed the letter gently on the judge's bench. "I was asked today why this matters to me," he said quietly. "Because that boy could have been me. I was born under bombs. I was once hungry. I was once voiceless." His voice trembled, but never broke. "And now that I have a voice, I will not use it for silence." The entire room stood. Even the coldest judge did not object. The gavel remained still, because the truth was louder than law. As Traoré stepped out of the courtroom for a break, he was approached by an elderly woman wrapped in a faded shawl. Her eyes were watery. Her fingers trembled as she held out a folded photo. "My grandson," she whispered. "His name was Idris. He was taken at 15. They said he was too old to stay. He cried in English. They didn't listen." The photo was creased from being held too often. In it, a teenage boy stood beside a U.S. Marine truck, waving. "He served them tea every morning. He loved them," she said, her voice cracking. "They left, and he was deported to a land he never knew." Traoré bent down, held her hands. "Where is he now?" Her eyes fell. "He was shot crossing the desert. They say it was an accident." A silence so thick it hurt. By the time Traoré walked back inside, he carried her pain like his own. He didn't just represent a country now. He carried the grief of every family separated, every life discarded, every voice erased. And still, the world wasn't listening loud enough. So he decided to raise the volume. During a special evening broadcast, a U.S. ambassador to West Africa requested a televised sit-down with Captain Traoré. Many expected confrontation. What followed stunned everyone. "Ibrahim," the ambassador said, "when we signed those defense deals with your nation, we made promises. We failed to keep them. We failed you." Traoré didn't speak right away. He stared at the camera, then replied, "An apology does not sow a broken family. It does not raise the dead." A pause. "But it is a start." The ambassador handed him a classified document. "This contains the names of 47 deported men who served alongside U.S. soldiers. Some are missing. Some may still be alive." A ripple went through the world. Could some of the deported heroes still be alive? And then, just as the broadcast was about to end, Traoré dropped a quiet bomb. "I'm going to find them." That night, his name trended again. But not just as a leader. As a brother, a witness, and a man who wouldn't let injustice fade quietly. 3 days later, Traoré received an anonymous satellite message. It came from an unregistered line in northern Mali. It was just 14 seconds long. "Captain, If this reaches you, my name is Idris. I'm alive. We're hiding. But they know we help. They're hunting us. The audio was real. The voice matched the boy in the grandmother's photo. The courtroom paused its proceedings. The world leaned in. A UN human rights team confirmed the location as a border village between Mali and Algeria. But when they arrived, the site had already been burned. Bodies were found, none confirmed as Idris. Back in court, Traoré held up the voice clip. "Will you still say these men don't matter?" he asked. No one answered. In Burkina Faso, hundreds of people began painting murals of Idris on walls. One caption said, "He served peace, peace betrayed him." And still, the boy's fate remained unknown. But one thing was certain. Traoré would not stop until he found every last one. The Supreme Court had resumed session, but the tension felt different, heavier. Right before Captain Traoré took the stand again, his assistant handed him something quietly. A drawing, done in crayon. Traoré held it up for everyone to see. A stick-figure boy stood next to a tall soldier. The soldier had a Burkina Faso flag on his chest. The boy had no face, just a scribble where his mouth should be. "This was drawn by a child in Niger," Traoré said softly. "His father was deported, his mother never speaks anymore. And the boy, he says he no longer remembers how to smile." The courtroom froze. "I'm not here for politics," he continued. "I'm here for silence, for the people whose pain never made it to the news, for the mothers holding toothbrushes of sons who never came home." A single tear rolled down a young law clerk's cheek. "This is not about laws anymore," Traoré whispered. "This is about what's left when law forgets humanity." And for the first time during the trial, a Supreme Court justice lowered her head and wept. That same evening, an encrypted message was leaked. A military contractor tied to the deportation program had issued a warning. If Traoré keeps speaking, security footage of his operations in Sahel will be released. It will ruin him. It will silence him. The internet exploded with speculation. Some Western analysts called for Traoré to back down. Others whispered he was just another politician chasing clout. But Traoré didn't flinch. At the live forum the next morning, he walked in with a USB stick. He looked into the camera. "I know what's on here. I'll show it myself." Gasps. He plugged it in. The footage played. It showed Traoré helping wounded children in a war-torn village, carrying a boy on his back, sharing his rations with a refugee camp. Not war crimes, compassion caught on tape. The audience stood. The applause started slowly. Then it roared. "I have no secrets," he said, "only scars, and I wear them proudly, for my people." The threat had failed, but the truth? It had set fire to the entire conversation. The UN delivered a classified file to Traoré's legal team. Inside, names of 400 individuals deported in the last 5 years under emergency protocols. Most had served alongside Western forces. Many had vanished after arrival. It was called the Ghost List. Traoré read each name aloud during the next hearing, voice shaking. One name caught his breath, Souleymane Diallo. A young man Traoré once trained himself. A journalist shouted, "Why didn't anyone speak up before?" Traoré looked straight at the camera. "Because the ones who survive carry guilt, and the ones who vanish carry silence." He paused. "Today, we break both." Suddenly, a woman in the courtroom screamed. She ran forward, tears streaming. "My brother is on that list," she cried. "You said his name. You said his name." The guards didn't stop her. Traoré didn't stop her. He held her, quietly. That clip went viral in under 30 minutes, and around the world, families began searching the ghost list, hoping, praying that someone somewhere might still be alive. The case was no longer about law. It was now about redemption, reunion, and the desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, not all was lost. The courtroom was dead silent. After 3 weeks of emotional testimonies, leaked footage, and heartbreaking revelations, the U.S. Supreme Court had reconvened to deliver its final statement. Everyone expected a carefully worded judgment. But what followed, nobody predicted. Justice Rivera, the eldest on the bench, stood, visibly trembling. "We failed them," she whispered. "Not just migrants, but humanity. We debated laws, while children grew up without parents, while war survivors were tossed into shadows." She turned to Captain Traoré. "You reminded us what justice is supposed to feel like." Then, they overturned the block on the initiative and launched an emergency federal inquiry into the deportations that had already occurred. The room erupted in disbelief, but not everyone cheered. Traoré didn't smile. Instead, he placed a single worn shoe on the table. It belonged to a child deported 2 years ago, never found again. "This is not a victory," he said. "It's a start, and we must not stop here." And just like that, justice became more than words. It became a global reckoning. 2 weeks later, Captain Traoré hosted a summit, this time in Ouagadougou. He didn't invite world leaders. He invited families. Thousands came from Syria, Haiti, Mali, Honduras. They carried photos, letters, even toothbrushes of loved ones taken and never seen again. In a quiet hall, Traoré had arranged a massive screen, a database, a memorial wall. Every name from the ghost list appeared, slowly scrolling. People screamed when they saw familiar names. Others fell to their knees. Some simply stared, silent. Then, something extraordinary happened. A mother from El Salvador screamed, "That's my son!" Moments later, a boy stepped forward from the side, a child found in Ghana just a month ago. He ran to her. The entire room collapsed in tears. It was one name, one family reunited. But it was enough to make hope real again. Traoré stood silently in a corner, eyes closed. He wasn't just fighting with words anymore. He had become a bridge between pain and healing. A BBC anchor asked Traoré one last question live. "What made you do this? You had nothing to gain." He looked into the camera, voice heavy. Because a boy once watched his neighbor disappear, he heard the cries, he remembered the silence. That boy grew up and became a soldier. That boy was me. The camera panned close. His eyes were wet. "I didn't come to America to argue laws. I came to hold a mirror and to remind the powerful what forgotten faces look like." The video hit 98 million views in 2 days. A global movement began. Name them all. Millions shared stories. Families were reconnected. Forgotten people were found. And Ibrahim Traoré? He returned home quietly, refusing interviews, refusing praise. But around the world, murals of his speech began appearing on walls. Children painted his words. "We do not deport pain. We carry it. We heal it." If this story moved you, if it made you cry, if it made you hope again, if it made you proud of people like Ibrahim Traoré, please like this video, subscribe to this channel, and most importantly, comment one name you'll never forget. Someone needs to read your comment and feel hope. Let's build a wall of names in the comments. Let's remind the world they were never invisible.